Versus inherency, we have three arguments. First, the United States recently stated that, or the United States recently started striking striking ISIS with the coalition of the willing. This includes most NATO countries like Germany, and the second argument is that Turkey is not engaged in this striking of ISIS. They have not yet chosen to support. And 2 days ago, the Turkish Foreign Minister Kavlova said that there was absolutely no chance that they would end up participating in this coalition of the willing. The third argument is that the U.S. has a big role in this in the striking of ISIS and the war against Syria, or the war against ISIS. They have engaged in multiple attacks. Thus, the plan: the United States federal government should propose the removal of Turkey from NATO. First, the United States federal government should propose the removal of Turkey from NATO. Solvency arguments. 1. Turkey joins the coalition because they're not willing to risk being removed from NATO. This would be horrible for their credibility because they have built much of their economy off of engaging with other NATO states. The second argument is that Erdogan has asked the Turkish parliament to go into ISIS, but the parliament has been wavering. This shows that there is a history of colonialism that overwhelms Turkish politics to a point of having precedence over other things. This also means that this act can just be the thing that breaks Turkey and forces them to join NATO. Advantage 1 is ISIS. First, the uniqueness. The current efforts against ISIS are failing because we do not have any boots on the ground. The U.S. measures have had effectively little success because there is still because the genocide that is still occurring in Kobani is proof. There are still many people being killed. There are still and the U.S. efforts have not decreased this. The second argument is that the U.S. has been striking. There have been far few countries that have been part of this. This includes the foreign policy scholar Jill Dado said that the war against ISIS is failing in the status quo because it is an East v West war, which makes it such that ISIS is unflinching in their compromisation. If we get an Eastern country on board, we're able to have a larger stance. The link is you can cross-apply solvency for the link. Turkey will enter the ISIS conflict as a result of the plan because they're not willing to risk leaving. What's up?
So you make the argument that ISIS isn't engaging, won't stop because it's the East v West war. What about all of the different Middle Eastern countries that have said that are on board with the coalition, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar? Why wouldn't their participation resolve the ISIS conflict?
The argument that Dadas, I think, makes is that those countries have been insufficient in their ability to put boots on the ground and not follow the United States, but I'll get to that in the internal links, which is now. We have a couple of internal links. For Turkey is key. One, because it's the only country that can also have a ground push against ISIS, which is why the war is failing in the status quo. It's the only country that is close enough. Particularly, number 2, Turkey is close to the city of Kobani, which is 6 miles away from the Turkish border. This is key to the war because most of the killings have occurred, and this is the central place in which ISIS is able to meet and strategize. The third argument is the cross-application of our uniqueness argument that it has to be an East v. It can't just be an East v West war. We need Turkey in order to have some sort of success against. We need Turkey to be on the ground and also to be part of the strategizing in order to be able to solve this. Impacts. The first impact is genocide. ISIS has empirically been striking and exterminating different populations because of their religious beliefs and based off of religion. This is a form of genocide. This causes the same sort of thing that happened in the Holocaust. This causes the same form of impacts that have occurred in many other genocides in history. This usually could culminate in the mass extinction extinction of millions of people. The second argument is, the second impact is nuclear weapons. This is ISIS is creating a safe haven for terrorists because it's creating a group of terrorists that can strike the United States, that are all trying to attempt to strike different Western worlds. The piece of point is that this causes the U.S. this causes those terrorists to steal nuclear weapons from one of the many unsafe nuclear weapons hubs, such as in Pakistan, such as India, such as Pakistan. The piece of point is that this causes extinction because of this terrorist attack. Because other countries would retaliate against these groups. Would retaliate against these groups that would cause that would draw in the entire world World War III with nuclear weapons. The second advantage is NATO credibility. Uniqueness. NATO is facing a crisis of confidence over ISIS. First, the U.S. coalition forces have hit over 1,000 targets in ISIS territory. Turkey's 200 F-16 fighters have been doing nothing while slaughtering tons of people. Turkey's absence is conspicuous because it only means that because it's the only because it's one of the U.S.'s only because it's the only missing ally from NATO, and Ankara has refused the U.S.'s opportunities in Turkish air bases. This forces operations to go out of Qatar, especially because of the Ergaigal base. This is Erklik base, which Turkey owns but can't technically do things over without NATO. The link arguments can be cross-applied from the last advantage. Turkey will probably then rejoin NATO. This is the point is that this is an instance of NATO cracking down. Next, the internal links. This is key to confront. The impacts. This is key to confront NATO legitimacy. Is key to confront where Russia and maintain a cohesive front against Ukraine. The second argument is that the first argument is that in the status quo, Russia will have some sort of a push against Ukraine and later on, and will try and get more territories. And this will cause nuclear war if NATO can't step in because Russia, proven with Putin's editorial in the New York Times, is willing to go to great means.
All right, there'll be 2 off in case. Just gonna go solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2. Everybody good? First off, case position disadvantage on Russia backlash is the uniqueness versus the Northern Distribution Network, or the NDN, is the main supply corridor for NATO supplies into Afghanistan. It runs primarily through Russia into northern Afghanistan. 52% of all coalition supplies and 40% of all United States supplies goes through the Northern Distribution Network. Second, since 2008, the United States paid Russia $1 billion to maintain access to the NDN. Other supply lines, mostly through Pakistan, are unstable, mostly due to banditry and have been closed in the past. The third argument is that relations are key to access to the NDN. Colby Howard, an expert at the Center for Analysis and Strategies and Technology, or CAST, Moscow-based military think tank, has said that current sanctions and the Ukraine conflict have mostly left the NDN alone. However, further relations degradation would lead to disruptions and may lead to Russia will close the NDN. The fourth argument is the United States and Russian relations are stabilizing. Now the delay is that Vasily Kashin, another expert at CAST, said that after securing Crimea, Russia wants to de-escalate the conflict and has no reason to further lead to conflict with the United States. However, reigniting the conflict would necessarily lead to Russia backlash will be that the Ukraine withdraw Russia has withdrawn most of its forces from the main area of Ukraine and will maybe back into Crimea. Means that the tensions are de-escalating. Be the links. First, if the plan passes, the second argument is that the plan angers Russia. The little A is that Russia has posed major action within Syria, and that is restarting this conflict and allowing for more action by Turkey would necessarily lead to Russia becoming angry and leading to backlash. Will be that the scene is substantially United imperialism that Russia doesn't care as much about taking unilateral strikes within Syria. However, a coalition that would force countries like Turkey to force them into action would necessarily lead to what we see United imperialism will lead to Russia anger. They'll seize that Russia has had strong ties with Turkey in the past, and that they have not only had great trade, but also based on geographic location, Russia has supported Turkey in the past, and necessarily that United States coercion would lead to Russia backlash. Seize the internal links. First, the Russia backlash leads to the NDN being closed. Little A is that this has been threatened before. That in 2011, Russia threatened to close the NDN over a proposed missile defense shield within Europe, and that didn't happen then. However, the new backlash in the current scenario would lead to Russia closing the Indiana will be that operations would be a key military operations would be a key target. You can look at the fact that in September, NATO set up a rapid reaction force in order to counterbalance Russia. Any new backlash would necessarily be targeted in order to be able to hamper further NATO aggression near the impact. Scenario 1 is humanitarian aid. Is that where the United States Air Force General Paul Sullivan, the head of Air Force Command within Afghanistan, said that 20% of all food going into Afghanistan goes through the NDN. Little B is the collapse of distribution would necessarily prevent this food from getting access into Afghanistan. Little B is that this leads to starvation. Much of the food that is moved through the NDN is distributed to local populations in the form of food aid. Necessarily means that a collapse of this distribution would lead to substantial amounts of starvation and famine. The scenario 2, however, is Taliban resurgence. The little A here says supplies repeat military operations. 80% of all air-based fuel goes through the NDN, and 50% of all supplies goes through the NDN. Necessarily means that the collapse of this supply network would kill all further NATO operations within the region. Will be that the operation collapse would lead to the Taliban resurgence. Over the last year, Taliban has been trying to reassert control within Afghanistan by through things such as beheadings or further violence. However, it's been checked by NATO military operations. Necessarily means that a collapse this would allow for the Taliban to gain control within would regain a foothold within Afghanistan. Little sees that this would lead to massive violence. The Taliban would try to retake not only the government but also try to reclaim territorial areas. NATO's presence is specifically key. The third argument here is that this also turns case because of the fact that supplies, collapse of things like supplies going into the region will prevent any further military operations within Syria. Necessarily means that this would prevent any kind of ground offensive within the region. Means that this would turn case. Good. Yep. Second is that Turkey backlash. AC Mutinous first argument is U.S.-Turkey relations are fragile and status quo. And the is that the Turkish government is currently angry over allegations that that Turkey has supported ISIS and saying that they may cut basic rights in response to the peace. There's been years of conflict specifically over military issues. You can look at the fact that Turkey refused to allow for planes to go through Turkey for deployment into Iraq. These planes first that the plan passes the internal lanes first that this would lead to a Turkey backlash. Delays that Turkey has indicated that they do not want to be a part of the conflict. You can look to the fact that the foreign minister has said that there would be no propensity for them to join the coalition. Little B. So you can look to the fact that NATO was especially key to the fact that Turkey relies on NATO not only for military cooperation, but additionally that a proposal to remove them would be a huge slap in the face. And so it means that Turkey would try to backlash and would necessarily try to move to other allies within the region. Here, the impact first scenario 1 is Cyprus. The first argument is that Turkey resurged their control within the Cyprus region. This has been an empirical response that over the course of many years, Turkey has looked at the Cyprus region as a main point of conflict, especially when they've been seen as being moved away from traditional allies. Necessarily means they've tried to reassert control not only as a necessary source of resources, but additionally that this would be a show of force in order to be able to reclaim regional hegemony. With the little piece, this is specifically on the brink now. You can look at the fact that Turkey and Cyprus have been seeing conflict over natural gas supplies, and that just last week, Turkey sent a research vessel and 2 Navy ships went into the Cyprus region. This was against a specific test for drilling that was awarded to the Italian government by the Cyprus government. Means that shows that this conflict is on the break now. In addition, second, this would lead to significant Cyprus. This would lead to aggression by Turkey in the Cyprus region. Would lead to turn to a backlash by Greece. Because of the fact that not only would this be a probably around the flag fact, because of the fact that it's competing territorial claims means that Greece would likely try to reassert control. This would necessarily lead to a conflict in the region, and many analysts have said that if there was going to be a conflict within Europe, it would be over Cyprus. Additionally, the third argument, this would lead to escalatory conflict because of the fact that Greece as a European Union member means the European Union would likely side with Greece, and the United States would likely side with Turkey. Necessarily means that this would lead to an escalatory conflict. But scenario 2 is basing rights. The first argument is that Turkey is the same. They want to that this would be the thing that would end basic rights for the United States within the region, which would collapse not only regional hegemony because of the fact that this would be necessary for all kinds of conflict because of the fact that we have to have basic rights within this region. But additionally, this would likely lead to a collapse of any kind of military operation within the area. Would probably turn case because of the fact that we would lose any ability to do things like airstrikes against ISIS. Good. Yep. That's case. On the solvency, the first argument is going to be Turkey says no. The first point here, I lost the sheet. Here we go.
The first argument is that they said that they don't even want to be alone within the conflict because the fact that they would because they would want the United States support. However, this would force them to do the conflict alone. In addition, the second argument is that they're looking for a no-fly zone. Turkey's indicated they want to have a no-fly zone in order to be able to train things like moderate rebels not to necessarily get involved within ground conflict. Means there's no necessity for Turkey to agree to this. But in addition to that, Turkey can call for attacks against Assad about ISIS means that there's no reason for Turkey to get involved. The ISIS advantage. The first argument is this leads to an increased ISIS support because of the fact that a major ground offensive by a regional ally would allow for ISIS to reentrench themselves within the region and only lead to further conflict. Additionally, the next argument is going to be no. There's no risk of escalation. The fact that airstrikes are going to solve the problem. There's no reason for a ground offensive in order to be able to resolve the conflict, and there's no risk of terrorist organizations getting access to nuclear weapons. All the nuclear weapons within the region have already been resolved, and there's no access for them to be able to get the weapons in the first place, and there's no delivery system, means there's no chance for an escalatory conflict quickly on advantage too. This is not unique. There's been the NATO cohesion has been decreasing for several years, especially with Turkey, because of that they refuse to have these basic rights within Iraq. There's no access to this. Additionally, term that
Order will be advantage 2, which is NATO, advantage 1, which is ISIS, the case, followed by the Russia relations to Assad, and then the Turkey relations to Assad.
So the bottom of the case, Russia, Turkey.
Yes.
A1 solvency.
Yeah, you mean the IPS.
Yeah, the IPS sheet. Yeah, it's
Absolutely advantages.
right. Is everyone ready? Our opponents say that NATO cohesion is decreasing. This is exactly what our uniqueness argument is for why we need to increase the legitimacy of NATO in the status quo, because cohesion is decreasing. If we have a sustained, visible perception of Turkey helping out with its NATO allies, that signals to Russia that there will be a sustained response to any further incursions in Eastern Europe, not just against Ukraine, but against actual NATO countries. Now go to our ISIS advantage. Oh yeah, and sorry, on the NATO advantage, extend the Russia impact, which has not been answered. That there's Russia aggression in the status quo, which will extend to NATO countries only if we don't have a strong force. That causes World War III. That causes World War III. Now with the ISIS advantage, they say that. That ground forces are not important. However, ground forces are key to stop ISIS entrenching themselves. The airstrikes are not going to be able to effective unless we have a ground force to identify what the targets are, get intelligence, so that we can actually have effective airstrikes against ISIS. Even Jimmy Carter came out the other day and said that Obama's plan is useless unless we have ground forces, so that we can have permanent, long-lasting gains, not just temporary gains against ISIS. Some of the impacts to this include genocide. For example, they've not answered our example about Kobani. Kobani is on the border with Turkey right now as we speak. ISIS is besieging Kobani. Is going to kill a town literally massacre a town full of Kurds. Turkey has refused to step into this, which is why we need military pressure. Additionally, if there's no ground forces, we're not going to be able to have a strong front against ISIS, because we need ground forces. That's about giving ISIS a base of operations, allows them to do terrorist attacks, which countries will retaliate against, causing escalation. That impact has not been answered, which means you should grant us 100% of that extinction scenario. Now the case. They say that Turkey has no incentive to get involved in the conflict. That's absolutely wrong. Turkey is on the border with ISIS. But Turkey realizes that inevitably they're going to have to get involved. They're going to have to get involved in some form, especially when it's right on their border. According to the Washington Post from 2 days ago, the Turkey Foreign Minister Sergoglu says that Turkey will have to have a role. He's even having a meeting with Kerry. The question is, what will Turkey's role be? Right in the status quo, they want to do things like no-fly zones, but U.S. military pressure is going to be able to get them to have ground force, especially when the conflict is right on their border. There's huge political and economic reasons to do so. Now go to the Russia to Assad. The idea that U.S. and Russia relations are getting better ignores the entire huge litany of facts, like the fact that we have introduced huge economic sanctions on Russia, which are destabilizing their economy. That far outweighs a plan that does not even directly reference Russia. Furthermore, even if it's true that the U.S. wants better Russia relations, Russia does not want better relations. Proven in the state-controlled media are pushing an anti-West nationalistic message, and a large majority of Russians, according to polls, support the Ukraine invasion because they see this in their sphere of influence. Putin does not want relations because his stance to get legitimacy in the absence of economic growth is to be anti-US, be anti-West, which gives him popularity and legitimacy, which means that the idea that the US-Russia relations are going to magically get better is absolutely ridiculous. Now on the link, their claim is that unilateral US action in the Middle East is worse for relations than action with coalition support, which is not true. When we have the support of all our allies, it shows that the U.S. isn't being imperialist and trying to impose its will on the region. Now, our opponents even say that not even missile defense on Russia's border could close the NDN. This is the largest link possible because missile defense was a direct threat to sovereignty, and even missile defense couldn't get them to close the NDN, which is a lot bigger issue than the plan. Now, their impact does not make sense. U.S. pullout of Afghanistan is inevitable, which means that Taliban resurgence is also inevitable. It also doesn't turn case because Afghan is not a key base of operations for the ISIS offensive. Now on the Turkey relations dissent. The Turkey relations will not be hurt because Turkey is already committed to supporting the ISIS operation in some form. The question is, how will Turkey support the ISIS operation? Our argument is that by pressuring them, by having an ultimatum on NATO, then Turkey will realize that it's in their security interest to actually get involved with this. Additionally, the plan. Nowhere does it say in our plan that there necessarily must be legislation. Often diplomats will use diplomatic back channels or intermilitary communications, which means that Turkey does not feel like it has to save face or do something reckless to save its image in the world. Now, on the impact. Turkey also has large political and economic incentives to get involved with the conflict because it's right on their border. Now, on the question of Cyprus, there's no internal link between why a decrease in U.S.-Turkey relations would cause conflict with Cyprus. And even if it's true that there would be a conflict between the EU and U.S. with siding with Greece and Turkey respectively, that strong EU relations mean there's an incentive to get people to cooperate and get people to the bargaining table, which would de-escalate the conflict. Look, so there's no risk of this impact. Do we have anything else?
How much time
Do you have 2 minutes?
Okay. No, 156.
156. We have strong impact defense to all of their disads, and basically conceded the ISIS advantage. They only make a uniqueness claim that or the NATO advantage. They only make a uniqueness claim that things are getting worse, but that's our claim.
You should one say EU-US war would not escalate to nuclear war.
Also, EU
Turkey backlash dissent.
On the Turkey backlash dissent, EU-US war could never escalate to nuclear war. There's too many channels to allow for any miscalculation. The relations are strong. There's always an incentive to cooperate.
And on the Russia backlash dissent, answer the turns the case argument.
And also on the Russia backlash dissent, I answered that. It can't turn the case because Afghanistan is not a key base of operations for the ISIS offensive. We have other places. All right.
I would like Turkey.
The dissent.
Yeah. I mean Turkey for lunch too. But the Turkey disad, the Russia disad, and then the case in the original order straight on.
So solvency, ISIS, and the
I'm going to do exactly what's being suggested. See this for a minute. Thank you. If you don't mind.
You know, there used to be this thing in redneck culture where you race for pink slips. So whoever had the faster car would go to the person's car. Maybe you should debate for speaker stands. Listen, something on this. Okay.
I'm okay with that because I sit while I speak.
I have been.
Okay. That would be hilarious to watch in policy. Like the
They
very
would
beginning
fight
of the
hard,
term,
yeah. They'd fight to the death for those podiums.
Everyone gets one card. Whoever finishes first gets to take their stand back. Well, all of the stands. Everybody. Turkey. On Turkey, you can extend that Turkey is going to agree because this ultimatum is going to put this in their security interest. However, you need to extend Core's argumentation about how this is going to lead to how they want a no-fly zone. Corey, what did you want with this argument?
It goes into our no-solvency block that Turkey wants a no-fly zone for cooperation, not an ultimatum. This means that they're not going to agree to a ground offensive.
Right, so you can extend that they want a no-fly zone, not a ground offensive means that this is going to feed into the no-solvency block, but we're going to talk about that when we get to the solvency sheet. On to Russia. At the top of Russia, the first argument that they make is that economic sanctions didn't cause this to happen. However, you can look to our uniqueness, which is predictive of this. You can look specifically to the warrant that the court provides you from, I forget what the acronym stands for, but CAST, who says that this hasn't happened as a result of economic sanctions, but any further degradation of relations is necessarily going to lead to this. The next argument that they make is that Russia doesn't want an increase in relations. This is as a result of their interest in the Ukraine invasions. However, this is not responsive to the specific uniqueness that Corey is giving you about Russia's response to major action in Syria. You can look specifically to the link level, the little a. Argument under the second link is that Russia opposes major action in Syria and that this is what is going to cause this link. This is the specific argumentation that shows why Russia is necessarily going to backlash here. The only other way that this argument can possibly function is as a non-unique. However, this doesn't explain why Russia is not backlashing right now. This is necessarily going to cause the Russian backlash that we described. The next argument that they make is that the U.S. has the support of the Allies and that even the U.S. has the support of the Allies. The first response that we want here is that this is going to look at it like it is U.S.-led, as the plan is a U.S.-led pressuring of Turkey. But the second argument here is that the U.S. as the head of NATO is probably a reason why Russia is going to perceive this as major Western action originating from the United States. The second argument that they make is that the even missile defense was not able to close the NDN. However, this didn't happen exactly for that reason. We proposed this missile defense and then we didn't do it because of the potential loss of the NDN is the reason why we are necessarily going to lose the NDN in this scenario. This doesn't respond to the historical context of the argument. The next argument that they make is that this isn't key to ISIS, so this isn't going to turn case. However, the Taliban conflict is not key to ISIS. We agree with that. However, the supply line that we're going to lose as a result of the loss of the NDN is going to be key to checking ISIS because you can extend Corey's argument that this is the supply route for 80% of our air bases fueling, means that we aren't going to be able to launch air attacks against ISIS if we don't have the ability to put our planes up in the air because we couldn't get them fuel in the first place. Is the reason why the NDN is going to be key to this and why this necessarily turns the ability of, or turns case.
This also prevents any future ground conflict.
Right, this also prevents any future ground conflict to the point at which we're not able to actually mobilize our ground forces through Russia because this is the only supply route. You can extend Corey's argumentation about how Pakistan is an inadequate supply route as a result of banditry and exposure to attacks is a reason why Russia is necessarily key to being able to engage in the Middle East. This is this functions as a case from the point at which we're never going to be able to engage in this through the United States, and the United States is no longer going to be able to continue our airstrikes, which are key to removing ISIS's capabilities. Are you happy there, Corey?
They say U.S. pull out inevitable.
U.S. pull out. Right. They say U.S. pull out of Afghanistan inevitable. However, the United States just signed a security guarantee with Afghanistan that they're going to stay there until 2024. Is the reason why the U.S. pullout isn't going to happen for at least another decade. Is why it is particularly key that we provide security now. You can extend all of Corey's argumentation at the impact level about how Taliban resurgence is necessarily going to lead to mass violence as they reclaim the territorial area as an independent reason to oppose the affirmative. Are you happy, Corey?
Also, the humanitarian aid turns all their genocide arguments.
Right, you can extend Corey's argumentation about humanitarian aid. This is going to turn all of their genocide arguments to the point at which individuals are going to be starving as a result of lack of access to the food resources that we provide. These individuals are necessarily going to be facing a similar form of genocide that is going to be equivocal to the genocide that they describe on case. Happy there?
Yep.
Cool, solvency. The only argumentation they make in response to Corey's Turkey arguments is that they share a border with ISIS and that they're going to want to get involved as a result of this, but this is not what they want right now. You can look specifically to the argument, statements from the foreign minister that says that Turkey doesn't want to be alone in the conflict is a reason why Turkey is necessarily not going to want to engage in this type of response because Turkey doesn't want to be the only people sending in their troops. They're at a massive disadvantage if they are operating alone without the support of NATO is the reason why this is never going to function. Corey, do you want anything else here?
They also want a no-fly zone to train moderate rebels. They want to train the people to fight their own conflict.
Right, Morgan can extend Corey's second argument that they just want a no-fly zone so that they're going to be able to train moderate rebels and that they don't want to be engaging using their own troops in this conflict. Happy?
Yep.
Cool. Advantage 1? The first argument they make is that the Islamic State is going to be able to re-entrench itself. However, oh, sorry. I'm reading Corey's arguments, not theirs. That explains a lot. They say that ground forces are going to be key to being effective. However, the first response that we have here is that airstrikes are also going to be key because it provides the ability to destroy the IS military hardware that they have captured from the Iraqi national government, which is providing them the tactical capabilities that they have over forces like the Kurdish Peshmerga, who have historically been able to defend themselves, however, are outgunned right now by the Islamic State as a result of their high military capabilities through the artillery that they have captured from the Iraqi national government. At the point at which we are accessing the lack of air attacks case string, you're never going to be getting access to the airstrikes being able to check for this. The ground forces are never going to be able to resolve when the Islamic State is going to be equivocally armed to the. They're going to have just as much military capability. Moreover, they have more tactical understanding of the land that they are operating in because that is their historical land. Is the reason why ground forces are never going to be as effective as the airstrikes and why ground forces alone are never going to be able to solve, particularly when you lose access to airstrikes. The next argument that you can extend is Corey's turn, that this leads to the risk of escalation, that once Western forces are in the Middle East countering the IS on the ground, that this necessarily has runs the risk of escalation. You can look to the examples of both the Iraq conflict and the Afghanistan conflict, where the United States originally inserted for the purpose of countering one organization, but as soon as that organization was gone, we feared the risk of a power vacuum and stayed there longer. This is the reason why there is a problem right now in Syria, is because there is a power vacuum as a result of the Assad regime weakening. This is leading to the problem that we're seeing right now. If we insert ground troops, this is necessarily going to lead to the Turkish ground troops being stuck there for a longer period of time, as they are responsible for protecting against the power vacuum that could potentially just recollapse and open the door for the Islamic State to step right back in. The next argument that you can extend is Corey's first argument about how the terrorist organizations are never going to have access to nuclear weapons. The only place that they isolate is that there's a potential in Pakistan. However, the Islamic State isn't operating in Pakistan right now. It's probably the reason why this isn't going to happen. But the second argument is that Pakistan has protections against people accessing their nuclear weapons because they understand the high value of these is a reason why this is never going to happen. The next argument you can extend is Corey's argument about how there's never going to be any delivery, means that this could never lead to extinction because it would only be a ground-launched nuclear weapon which would only have the capability of killing millions but never extincting the planet. On to NATO credibility. Yeah?
Terminal no solvency. If it seems we have to remove an entire country in order to get them to do what we want, it kills any kind of cohesion.
If it seems we have to remove an entire country to get them to be able to do what we want, it kills all cohesion. Is a reason why this is never going to be able to solve into the future. But the next argument is that we are going to be controlling the more direct internal link, at the point at which we control the argumentation about the northern distribution network is probably going to short circuit any argumentation about confronting Russia. But the next argument is that
there's been no cohesion for years.
Right, no cohesion for years. You can extend Corey's argumentation about how NATO cohesion is terminally low as a reason why this is never going to be a concern.
I'd like to do the disadvantage first, and then I want to go to solvency, and then I want to go to mains the same order, advantage on those two.
Well, I need my turkey sheet.
No.
Sorry if I'm giving away major strategy there.
Can you say it?
Yeah, it's the same order. It's Russia, grabbed Turkey by accident, but it's going to be Russia, and then solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2. Is everybody ready? The disadvantage will outweigh in turn the affirmative case for a couple of reasons. First, it outweighs on the magnitudinal scenario. You can look to the fact that supply lines are necessary for all forms of military conflict within the Middle East, especially within Afghanistan. Not just Afghanistan, but to all conflict, because the fact that this supply line provides for half of all supplies into the region necessarily means that this is going to outweigh on a magnitudinal scenario because we get access to the collapse of military operations within against all forms of non-state actor violence. Means this outweighs on all of your scenarios, but additionally,
we outweigh on the probability, because the fact that you can look to, not only has Russia indicated this in the past and shows that you can look to the strength of our link, but additionally the fact that there's no offensive argument made against the disadvantage means that all of it means that risk of the link means that you should be evaluating this. But additionally, we outweigh on time frame. You can look to the fact that it doesn't take a long time for for Russia to just say that you are not allowed to come through our country anymore. This would immediately collapse any form of military operations within the region. You can look to the fact that this means we would outweigh, because all of their argumentation necessarily would require for Turkey to build up the necessary forces and would need the time in order to actually start the offensive necessary means that we outweigh on the time frame question. It means that additionally you can look to the fact that the disadvantage just turns the case. They are going for the necessary usage of a ground conflict, but without supply, the ground conflict just doesn't work. You actually have to be able to feed and clothe the troops that you have. Necessarily means that the collapse of supply lines would turn any chance of the ground conflict, and that turns advantage 1. And we also turn advantage 2, because if Russia can just destroy any chance of NATO operations in the future, then all of your argumentations about counterbalancing Russia go out the window. It means the disadvantage just straight outweighs. But looking at some of their specific analysis. They don't make any offensive arguments coming out of this, and all of the arguments that they're making are subsumed by the LOC's uniqueness. They will try to go for these arguments that we have placed sanctions on Russia already. However, you can look to our analysis that Russia has pulled out of Ukraine indicates that there's no propensity for the conflict to escalate now, and the fact that you can look to specific military analysts have said that that these two conflicts have been resolved, which means that any further backlash would be necessarily intended to collapse further military aggression. It means that this resolves any of your argumentation. Good? On solvency block. They try to write this off in the MG, but they concede. But this is terminally necessary in order for the entirety of the rest of the case discussion. You can look to the fact that if Turkey says no, if Turkey does not agree to a military offensive, then this takes out all the solvency for advantage 1 and advantage 2. It means that there's no way for them to access this. They are trying to go for this story that Turkey doesn't want to get involved, but now we're suddenly going to try to remove them from NATO, and they are going to agree to this. There's no propensity for this story to be true. You can look to the fact that Turkey wants to have a no-fly zone in order to be able to train modern rebels. They believe that this is the necessary approach. Means that this takes out all of your solvency claims, because there's no chance of Turkey agreeing to a ground offensive. But on advantage 1, you can look to the fact that not only does the disadvantage turn this, because of the fact that collapse of airstrikes will prevent any kind of future solvency, but additionally that access to supplies is necessary for a ground offensive means the disadvantage turns this. But you can look to the fact also our offensive arguments about only escalating the conflict with ISIS through ground strikes would mean this would allow for ISIS to take further conflict in the region, and they just don't have an impact to this story. You can notice that they concede all the impact events at the bottom. They may try to go for these genocide arguments, but you can notice the fact that airstrikes are necessary to resolve any conflict against ISIS means that there's no solvency for any of these genocide claims. You may get access to a few thousand individuals being saved, but the disadvantage will outweigh that. And on advantage 2, this story just doesn't make sense. You can look to Jacob's analysis that if you have to threaten a country from removal from the organization in order to be able to get them to do what you want, that shows that there's a lack of cohesion, and indicates to other countries that this would allow for conflict. Additionally, the disadvantage just turns this because of the fact that Russia can collapse any form of cooperation.
Okay, the order is the ISIS advantage, the Turkey backlash DA, then the NATO Cred advantage, then the IPS sheet, then the Russia backlash.
Sorry, can I get that one more time?
Sure. ISIS, Turkey backlash, NATO Cred, solvency, Russia.
Cool, thank you.
Did I get that? Okay. Ready? Genocide is a conceded scenario that outweighs whatever their nebulous impact scenario is. First is because it is the most probable scenario in this debate because they have conceded it, and my first speech indicates several different historical examples of the way in which genocide has killed and massacred millions of people in the past. All of their Taliban scenarios have never truly escalated, whereas we know that genocide can and will happen, and can and will happen in the future. future and causes disastrous impacts. Probability is the biggest standard for which you should evaluate impact comparison because it relies upon the empirical nature of impacts, which is the easiest thing to check out on. They say that airstrikes are also key. Is this argument a joke? Airstrikes kill the population. Airstrikes are literally genocide against the population. We think that having some boots on the ground is the best way in which we can take away forms of we can make it such that ISIS what's up?
I think the argument that airstrikes are a form of genocide is new in this speech. They've been going for a military offensive key to solve the conflict. They've not made the arguments about airstrikes.
I think that on the internal link to the impact to genocide, we said that status quo airstrikes are in fact genocide. And I mean, I think that that's...
I think I'm going to tend to side with the...
Sure.
Negative on that one. Sorry, I don't see that putting the current story right there.
Well, either way, airstrikes can't solve because of numerous reasons why boots on the ground are more important, because airstrikes just anger ISIS more and force them to then retaliate. This was the original warrant. They say next is that...
Extend my argument, ground troops are key because we have to be able to identify targets.
Jack made the argument that airstrikes are key because we have to be able to, or ground strikes are key because we have to be able to identify targets, and that can take out specific ISIS members. Next is that they say that ISIS is armed and has military capability. They concede there are a lot of reasons why we solve for that military capability. They say Iraqi conflict and Afghani conflict puts things into a power vacuum. That doesn't assume the world in which the affirmative acts. They say that there's no access to nuclear weapons because that there's no access to nuclear weapons. We're not even going to go for this scenario. Turkey backlash, DA. We're going to extend the second argument that Jack makes in his speech, which is an argument on the link that the plan would use diplomatic back channels, and Turkey would not feel like it has to quote-unquote save face. This takes out the disad because it means that Russia would not ever hear about this action. They have conceded basically that the plan occurs through the underground back channels. That takes out all of the relations link, because what does Russia then have to do with the entirety of the Aff? NATO credit. We're not going to go for it. They only have defense. We'll concede that the no solvency argument, the IPS argument. Their entire argument on this page boils down to just saying that Turkey doesn't want to have conflict, or that Turkey isn't going to do it. But that does not assume a world in which Turkey is pressured into conflict by the threat of being removed from NATO. They have conceded a couple of reasons why this is important. First is that Turkey not in NATO would cut off ties to their economy. Turkey not in NATO would cut off other relations and would make it such that they are unable to exist on a larger diplomatic scale. This would additionally, this is also what the Washington Post article that Jack referenced says, that right now the parliament is in limbo and still trying to decide one little bit of pressure. Oh, sorry. One bit of pressure. Oh, sorry.
The analysis that Turkey would agree to this because of the fact that it would prevent any future diplomatic engagement is new in this speech. They've made arguments about how they think they view ISIS as an issue, and that they want to have some kind of cooperation. But the fact that removal would prevent any future diplomatic channels would be new.
The argument that removal would cause Turkey to do something? I mean, the first solvency argument is Turkey joins the coalition.
What argument do you think is...
Sorry, I was a little unclear about that. The argument that that Turkey would join the coalition because of the removal from NATO, because removal would prevent any future diplomatic engagement and any engagement on a larger scale, I think is new.
That is literally the first solvency argument that's made in the first speech.
I think it echoes the PMC a little bit.
Yeah.
Certainly more so than the other claim was made earlier.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, even so, we also have a couple of other reasons that Turkey would join the coalition as a result of the Aff that have gone conceded.
Defense on the Russians.
Yeah, Russia DA. I'll begin by extending the no link or the threshold argument that is about the missile defense argument that not even missile defense gets close to getting Russia to close the NDM. They don't really have a cohesive answer to this because yes, they say that this is now the time in which in which people can try to get Russia to close the NDM. That doesn't make a lot of sense because this is an argument about the way in which that cannot rise to the threshold of making Russia act. That does not because not even missile defense could get Russia to do that. That is a reason why their link does not make any sense in the context of their internal links. Additionally, you can cross-apply the link defense that I made on the Turkey flow. That takes out the disad. Because it means that Russia will never hear about it, because that means that Russia will never get
Russia relations?
Yeah, and that also means that it doesn't collapse Russia relations. What's up? Yeah.
How much time?
Yeah, that's good.
20. A pretty good first round to start the tournament. Cool, everyone's all warmed up and stuff. Cool. I imagine you all were relatively happy to get Syria in the morning too. It's probably something to call it fun about. Since the season began, so at least nothing weird. There's I guess a couple of things. In some ways, the advantages that you're claiming are conditional. Obviously, they're conditional on solvency. You acknowledge that. That's why insolvency is like 100% is going to happen. But it really does create two levels, though, of analysis. There's the analysis of how likely are you to get the disad or the advantage. But even if you get the advantage, there's a separate calculation on how much of the advantage do you actually get. Instead of just, so the certainty of the advantage is probably not a given, but even if there was some certainty of the advantage, how big it is also is, I think, something that comes to play. And I think there are some tipping points. I may have point of ordered the secret negotiations.
Yeah.
Because that's not the plan. That's not, I don't think, also anything the MG says. I think they maybe talk about save face or something, but that this is going to be a secret negotiation that they never I mean, maybe you do. Maybe there is some save face argument there.
Isn't that on the Turkey DA?
I at least said hidden to the public.
Yeah.
But now then, though, I think that's going to lead some credence to their claims that there's a good chance Turkey still won't do it, or Turkey's going to do it under duress, or, I mean, there's just, there's no one from Turkey saying this would be awesome. The thing that you have about Turkey, what you're referring to Washington Post, that they acknowledge they have to have some kind of role, but that role seems to be identified with them as a no-fly zone. That seems to be the only thing that Turkey says they want. There's no one, or no analysis even from like Turkish papers or Turkish media that said that if they would just bend in and give, and I think one of the things that might help with the subtlety of this is to point out that this is a Kurd issue, and uniquely that's why they're resistant on this.
Yep.
That they have their own Kurd problem in their country. They're kind of okay letting Kurdish genocide go on. I think that's a little bit much.
Yeah.
But I don't think they really care enough to move in, and that's one of the reasons they're not going into Kobani. I think that added touch adds just another thing, because you have all these reasons why they won't accept it. You're starting off the uniqueness thing. I think a little bit more there. But also, though, the question becomes, but it's in their national security to do so. But there's a statement on what they say is in their national security, and they seem to say no-fly zone is the way they evaluate their national security. For NATO to come and say, no, really, your national security is get on the ground, dog. That's where it's at. When they distinctly do not want to be on ground troops. The humanitarian crisis in Kobani shows, even in that situation, so to say secretly, we're going to take you out to the woodshed, and if you don't join, we're going to kick you out, I think there's a possibility they come back from the woodshed and say, fuck you, we'd rather have NATO pissed off at us than ISIS. Now, that's a little bit more than you're saying. You're not making that comparison, because you have to look at a world of why, and when they say no, what they see is a bigger threat. But obviously, they're top, and I think there's some conflation of NATO, EU. And I think that even if NATO abandons their say, but they still have economic ties to the EU. They're the labor force and agricultural market for the EU. they're not going to be isolated economically. The NATOs might be mad at them, but everybody who's in the European Union, again, maybe a bit more there. However, I think to just blindly accept that Turkey's going to accept this pressure without any analysis, it's the kind of thing like, I understand the debate logic of this, but I just am not getting the international relations truth, validity out of that. And I'm not sure, I don't think your Washington Post article is enough to assert that they're eager for a ground war, particularly when what they're eager for is identified as a no-fly zone. So that question seems to be answered. Now there's no other thing other than assertion, but in debate world, if we make them do this, it would be kick-ass. It's really hard to sort of say, but I'm making a leap of faith there that just doesn't exist, particularly when the one role they want to have has been identified. There's no additional support in that way. So I'm not sure if I can get to your advantages, but even if I get to your advantages, really Kobani is the only scenario isolated. And yeah, it's a village of what, 25, 30, 40,000. And yes, but genocide versus, I think, the potential risk on, I don't know how to interpret the secret negotiations link, but I think that what you need to say is the DISAD's true regardless of whether Turkey accepts it or not accept it. The link exists if they say no, because NATO breaks down, Russia takes advantage, and the link exists if they say yes, because now then it's a Syrian conflict that they didn't want to escalate, and that sort of thing. And I think that the missile defense argument, okay, now here's, I guess, the point I'm going out on a limb is who resolves this missile defense thing. You say, well, missile defense didn't make them shut it, but they say, but we pulled missile defense because they threatened to shut it. And I don't really have a good answer to that. Now, I don't know which of those things is true, okay? Let me just be honest, maybe I should. Sorry, I'm a comp professor. I'm not really international relations. But you assert that it wasn't enough, but they said, but there's not a missile defense there now, so that kind of shows we backed off. And you never say there is a missile defense there. You just say missile defense didn't make them pull it, and they say it did. And I just don't know how to resolve it, except my best understanding is there's probably not a missile defense system there now. So that sort of, I think there is a potential threshold. I think they are interested in that if Assad is potentially threatened or a ground war begins in Syria, there is some potential thing they can do. I think they have this story that Putin knows economically he can't save Russia. He has to do these geopolitical things to keep his popularity. There's